Have you ever felt like God has removed you from everything familiar, pulling you away from people, places, and routines, leaving you in a season of quiet isolation? What if this isn't rejection, but a redirection? What if this solitude is God's way of speaking to you in a language that only silence can convey? This is not a punishment. It's a sacred process. Isolation by God is His way of separating you from the noise of the world so you can hear His voice more clearly. It's like being placed in a divine cocoon, a space where you are shielded from distractions, stripped of worldly attachments, and given the opportunity to be still and know Him more deeply. In these moments of solitude, God works as a master craftsman. He uses this time to protect you from battles you're not yet ready to fight, to prepare you for the responsibilities that come with your calling, and to elevate your spirit to new heights of faith and purpose. It's not about breaking you down, but about building you up. Much like gold refined in fire or a seed buried in darkness before it grows, this process is necessary for your transformation. So, if you've ever wondered why you feel alone, or why God seems silent, this message is for you. Let's explore the profound beauty and purpose behind this divine solitude and discover how it prepares you for the extraordinary destiny that awaits. If this resonates with you, let's take this journey together. Comment, "I am ready" below to declare your readiness for God's transformation in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more spiritual insights, and if you'd like to support this message, consider using the thanks button or joining through the join button to help us continue creating empowering content. Let's grow together. The role of isolation in God's plan. Have you ever stopped to wonder why some seasons of life feel so lonely and quiet, as if God has pressed pause on everything around you? Those moments of isolation often carry a purpose far greater than we realize. It may feel like you've been set aside, but in truth, you've been set apart. Isolation is not an act of abandonment by God, but a divine strategy designed to protect, prepare, and position you for something greater. It is in these seasons of solitude that God can do His most profound work in your life, much like a sculptor who retreats to his studio to chisel a masterpiece out of raw stone. Let's explore how isolation plays a key role in God's plan for your life. Protection, shielding you from harm. Isolation can often feel like rejection, but in reality, it is God's way of protecting you from things that could harm your spirit, faith, or purpose. Think about Noah and his family. God instructed them to build an ark and then sealed them inside, away from the destructive floodwaters. To the outside world, it may have seemed like they were trapped, but in reality, they were being shielded. The ark became their refuge, their safe haven. In the same way, God places you in an ark of isolation when He needs to guard you from influences or environments that could derail your destiny. It could be toxic relationships, draining workplaces, or even habits that no longer serve your spiritual growth. Picture it this way. You are a delicate flame, and God's hand cups around you, shielding you from the winds that threaten to extinguish your light. Though it may feel lonely, this is God's love in action, a protective barrier that allows you to thrive. It's not punishment, but preservation. Much like a gardener fences off a young plant to protect it from harsh weather or grazing animals, God fences you in for your own good. He sees dangers you cannot and knows what must be kept at bay while He works on you in private. Preparation, readying you for your purpose. Once God has placed you in a season of isolation, He begins the work of preparation. This is a sacred time where He molds and refines you, equipping you for the future He has planned. Consider Moses. Before he could lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses spent 40 years in the desert as a shepherd. That desert, barren and desolate, became his training ground. It was there that he learned patience, humility, and how to listen to God. By the time he stood before Pharaoh, he was no longer the impulsive man who once acted out of anger, but a servant prepared for a divine mission. Your season of isolation may feel like a wilderness, but it is a workshop where God is shaping you into who you need to be. Just as gold is refined in fire, your character is refined in solitude. It is here that God speaks to your heart, whispers His plans, and reveals the areas where you need to grow. It's like being in a divine classroom, where the curriculum is custom designed for your calling. You learn to rely on Him, to trust Him, and to hear His voice amidst the quiet. These lessons are foundational, preparing you to handle the weight of the blessings and responsibilities that come with your purpose. Think of an athlete training for a big event. They isolate themselves from distractions, spending hours in practice and conditioning their body for peak performance. In the same way, God uses your solitude to strengthen your spirit, sharpen your faith, and prepare you for the race set before you. It's not wasted time. It's intentional groundwork for something extraordinary. The beauty of being set apart. Being isolated by God can feel like a pause in your life, but it's actually a sacred reset. It's in these moments that God removes the noise and busyness of the world so He can have your full attention. It's like when a musician tunes their instrument before playing a symphony. The tuning may seem like a delay, but it's essential for the performance to be perfect. Similarly, God uses isolation to fine-tune your heart and align your spirit with His will. During these times, you may feel like a seed buried in the soil, hidden, unseen, and forgotten. But in that dark place, transformation is taking place. The seed is sprouting roots, drawing nourishment and growing in strength, preparing to break through the surface and bear fruit. What feels like darkness is actually a process of new life taking root. God's timing is perfect, and He knows when you're ready to step into the next chapter of your journey. Until then, embrace the isolation as a gift. Use it as an opportunity to grow closer to Him, to deepen your faith, and to prepare your heart for the amazing things to come. Remember, diamonds are formed under pressure, and masterpieces take time to create. You are no different. God's hands are on you, and He is crafting something beautiful within you. So, if you find yourself in a season of solitude, know this: you are not alone, and you are not forgotten. You are being protected, prepared, and positioned for a purpose far greater than you can imagine. Trust the process and the One who holds you in His hands. The isolation is temporary, but the transformation will last a lifetime. Strength and growth in solitude. Have you ever wondered why some of the most extraordinary transformations happen in solitude? It's as though isolation creates a sacred space where you can hear the whispers of your soul and the guidance of God more clearly. Solitude often feels like a barren land, but it is, in fact, fertile ground for strength and growth to take root. When you find yourself alone, away from the noise and distractions of the world, a powerful process begins. It's in this quiet, often uncomfortable place that God uncovers hidden strengths, sharpens your abilities, and deepens your faith. Strength in solitude, unveiling resilience and leadership. Solitude has a way of revealing parts of yourself you never knew existed. It strips away the crutches you've leaned on, other people, routines, or external validation, and forces you to rely on inner strength. Think of David, who spent years as a shepherd, alone in the fields, with only his sheep and God for company. While it may have seemed like a humble and uneventful job, this time of solitude was shaping him into a leader and a warrior. In the stillness of the fields, David honed his skills with a sling, learned to fend off predators, and developed the courage and resilience that would later enable him to face Goliath and lead a nation. Much like a tree that grows its deepest roots during storms, solitude builds resilience within you. It teaches you how to stand firm when the winds of life blow fiercely. You learn to depend on your own resourcefulness and to tap into the strength God has placed within you. Solitude is not a prison. It is a training ground, much like a forge where steel is tempered to become unbreakable. Every moment you spend in this quiet preparation equips you to face challenges with courage and lead with wisdom. You may not see the transformation immediately, but rest assured, it is happening, much like how a caterpillar silently metamorphoses into a butterfly within its cocoon. Spiritual growth, drawing closer to God. Solitude also fosters profound spiritual growth. It is in these quiet moments that you can reflect, pray, and truly listen to God's voice. When Elijah found himself in the wilderness, isolated and weary, he discovered God's provision in miraculous ways. Ravens brought him food, and a gentle whisper reminded him of God's presence and purpose. That solitude wasn't just a time of survival. It was a sacred encounter that deepened Elijah's faith and renewed his strength. In solitude, you're invited to take a closer look at your heart and examine your faith. It's like standing in front of a clear mirror, with nothing to distract you from what lies within. This introspection allows you to confront your fears, doubts, and weaknesses while also recognizing the incredible power of God at work in your life. It's in these moments of stillness that you learn to trust Him fully, like a child resting in the arms of a loving parent. Imagine a seed planted in the soil. For a time, it remains hidden in darkness, but during that time, it grows roots deep into the earth, drawing strength and nourishment. When it finally breaks through the surface, it stands tall and strong, ready to flourish. In the same way, solitude allows your spirit to take root in God's truth and love, preparing you to rise stronger and more steadfast. The gift of self-discovery and renewal. Another beautiful aspect of solitude is the way it allows you to rediscover yourself. Without the opinions and expectations of others clouding your view, you can see yourself as God sees you. Hidden talents come to light, and passions you'd forgotten or ignored begin to stir again. It's like finding treasures buried within your own soul. You may realize that you have a gift for leadership, creativity, or problem-solving that has been waiting for the right moment to emerge. These revelations don't just benefit you, they equip you to serve others and fulfill your God-given purpose. Solitude also provides a much-needed reset. It's like hitting the pause button on a noisy, chaotic life and giving yourself the chance to breathe. In this stillness, you can release the burdens you've been carrying and let God's peace wash over you. It's in this calm that clarity emerges, showing you the next steps on your journey. Think of it as a spiritual retreat where you come back stronger, refreshed, and ready to embrace what lies ahead. Embracing the beauty of solitude. Though solitude may feel uncomfortable at times, it is one of God's greatest tools for transformation. It's a sacred opportunity to draw closer to Him, discover your inner strength, and prepare for the incredible plans He has for you. Like a musician tuning their instrument before a concert, God uses solitude to fine-tune your heart and mind, ensuring that you are in harmony with His will. So, the next time you find yourself alone, resist the urge to see it as a punishment or a waste of time. Instead, embrace it as a gift. Lean into the quiet, listen for God's voice, and allow Him to work in and through you. Remember, the most beautiful masterpieces are often created in solitude, away from prying eyes. You are one of those masterpieces, and every moment spent in solitude is a stroke of the divine artist's brush, bringing you closer to the person you were created to be. Let solitude be your sanctuary, your training ground, and your place of renewal. Trust the process, for it is in the quiet that God does His loudest work in your life. The hidden phase before elevation. Have you ever felt like you're waiting in a hidden, quiet season? A time when it seems like nothing is happening, and life has come to a standstill. This hidden phase, though often misunderstood, is one of the most sacred parts of your journey. It's the time when God is working behind the scenes, preparing you for the moment of elevation. Much like a seed buried in the soil, unseen yet alive, your hidden phase is full of growth, transformation, and purpose. God uses these seasons of isolation to ensure that when the time comes for your breakthrough, you'll not only be ready, but also fully aligned with His divine plan. Elevation through isolation. The necessary hidden work. Before every great elevation, there is a hidden phase, a season where God isolates you, not to punish, but to prepare you. This phase often feels like being tucked away in obscurity, much like Joseph in the Bible. After being sold into slavery and later imprisoned, Joseph's dreams of leadership seemed impossible. Yet his time in isolation wasn't wasted. It was in the confinement of prison that Joseph developed wisdom, resilience, and trust in God. These qualities later enabled him to step into his role as a leader in Egypt, saving countless lives. In the same way, God uses your hidden season to equip you with the strength and skills you'll need to fulfill your purpose. Imagine a sculptor working on a masterpiece. The early stages are messy and unrecognizable, with the artist chipping away at the stone. To anyone watching, it may seem like there's no progress, but the sculptor has a vision, and every strike of the chisel is intentional. In your hidden season, God is the sculptor, shaping and refining you for the moment when you'll step into the spotlight. It may feel slow or even painful, but each experience, lesson, and moment of solitude is preparing you for your elevation. Divine timing, the unveiling at the perfect moment. God's timing is always perfect, and the hidden phase ensures you're ready when the moment of elevation arrives. Just as a fruit ripens in its own time, God's plan unfolds with precision. Take Jesus as an example. Before launching his public ministry, Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness, fasting and praying. This wasn't just a time of physical isolation. It was a spiritual preparation. In that quiet, hidden place, he faced temptation, strengthened his resolve, and aligned his heart with the Father's will. When he emerged, he was ready to fulfill his mission with power and clarity. Your hidden season serves the same purpose. It's a time of testing, refining, and preparation. God is not just preparing the opportunities for you, He's preparing you for the opportunities. When you finally step into your moment of elevation, there will be no doubt that you are ready, capable, and equipped to fulfill your purpose. It's like a bow being drawn back before an arrow is released. The tension and stillness of the hidden phase are necessary to propel you forward with precision and strength. The beauty of being hidden. Though the hidden phase can feel lonely or frustrating, it is also a place of profound intimacy with God. In this season, He has your full attention, away from the noise and distractions of the world. It's like being in a secret garden, where only the gardener knows what is being nurtured and grown. You may feel unseen by others, but you are fully seen and cherished by God. This is a time to draw closer to Him, to listen to His voice, and to allow His presence to guide you. Being hidden also protects you. Just as a butterfly's transformation happens in the safety of a cocoon, your growth happens away from prying eyes. God shields you from premature exposure, knowing that the weight of your purpose requires a solid foundation. Imagine a building under construction. Before the grand structure is revealed, its foundation is carefully laid and tested. Without this hidden work, the building would not stand. Similarly, God's hidden phase ensures that your elevation is built on a strong and unshakable foundation. Trusting the process. It's not easy to trust the process when you feel stuck in the hidden phase. Doubts creep in, and you may wonder if God has forgotten you. But remember, even when it feels like nothing is happening, God is working. Like a chef preparing a gourmet meal, He's adding the right ingredients at the right time, ensuring that everything comes together perfectly. Your role is to stay faithful, trusting that He knows what He's doing. Use this time to grow spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Read, pray, learn, and develop the skills that will serve you in your purpose. Embrace the solitude as a gift, knowing that it's part of the process. Look back on the lives of those who came before you: Joseph, Jesus, Moses, David, and take comfort in knowing that they too experienced hidden phases before their breakthroughs. When the moment comes, when God's timing aligns with your readiness, the hidden phase will end and your elevation will begin. You'll step into your purpose with confidence, knowing that you've been fully prepared. The waiting will make sense, and the struggles will feel worthwhile. Just as Joseph moved from prison to the palace in an instant, your breakthrough will come at the perfect moment. And when it does, it will be undeniable that it was God who orchestrated it all. So, if you find yourself in a hidden season, take heart. You are not forgotten, and your time is not wasted. You are being prepared, protected, and positioned for something far greater than you can imagine. Trust the process, lean into God's presence, and know that your elevation is on the horizon. In the Bible, the theme of isolation serves as a powerful backdrop to the personal and spiritual growth of key figures, each of whom found themselves in solitude at pivotal moments. Like a rough diamond that needs time and pressure to shine, these figures were refined and prepared for their divine purpose through periods of isolation. Moses, for example, spent 40 years in the desolate land of Midian. It was there, far from the comforts of Egypt, that God shaped him into the leader who would eventually guide the Israelites out of slavery. Just as a seed must first burrow deep into the soil before it can push through to the light, Moses' time in isolation was his soil, nurturing his patience, humility, and trust in God. The wilderness became his classroom, where the lessons of faith were written on his heart. In the quiet of the desert, he learned the art of listening to God, a skill that would prove invaluable as he led a stubborn and rebellious nation. Similarly, Paul's time spent in Arabia was a transformative period, one that deepened his understanding of his mission. After his dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus, Paul, once a fierce persecutor of Christians, retreated into the desert to process and understand the gravity of his encounter with Christ. It was a time of soul-searching, of stripping away old beliefs and learning to see the world through new eyes. Like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble to reveal the masterpiece within, Paul's isolation was the chisel that removed the clutter from his soul, revealing a deeper clarity of purpose. His time in Arabia, though unrecorded in great detail, must have been a sacred season, as it allowed him to reflect on the grace he had received and prepare for the monumental task of spreading the gospel to the Gentiles. Joseph's journey is perhaps one of the most heart-wrenching and poignant stories of isolation. Sold into slavery by his brothers, thrown into prison on false charges, Joseph's life seemed like an endless cycle of betrayal and loneliness. Yet, in the silence of his solitude, he was being prepared for a position of unimaginable authority. His character was being honed like iron in the fire, his trust in God growing deeper with each trial. The Bible teaches that God was with him every step of the way, even when he couldn't see his presence. Much like a potter who carefully molds clay, God was shaping Joseph for a greater purpose. The quiet hours in his prison cell were not wasted. They were moments of spiritual refinement, where Joseph's resilience and integrity were tested and strengthened. His isolation didn't break him. Instead, it built him into the wise and compassionate leader who would save many from famine. Then there is the example of Jesus, who spent 40 days in the wilderness before beginning his public ministry. Jesus' time in the desert was not simply a period of physical deprivation, but a spiritual trial that prepared him for his ultimate sacrifice. Much like a soldier training for battle, Jesus' isolation was a time of spiritual fortification, where he faced temptations and wrestled with his human nature. But in that solitude, he found strength through communion with his Father. It was in those quiet moments of prayer and reflection that he was able to resist the devil's temptations and emerge ready to carry out the mission that would change the course of history. The wilderness, a place of barren desolation, became for Jesus a sacred ground where he found the strength to endure the hardships ahead. Like a tree that grows deep roots in the stormiest of winds, Jesus' isolation in the wilderness anchored him firmly in his purpose, preparing him for the sacrifice he would make on the cross. These biblical figures reveal a common thread, that isolation, though often painful and difficult, is a divine tool for personal and spiritual growth. Just as a seed needs time alone in the earth to sprout, these leaders needed time alone with God to grow into the people they were destined to be. Their stories teach us that isolation is not always a punishment, but often a preparation. In the stillness, we are able to hear God's voice more clearly, to confront our own flaws and weaknesses, and to be transformed from the inside out. It is in the quiet that God shapes our hearts, our minds, and our spirits, preparing us for the tasks He has set before us. In our own lives, we may face seasons of isolation, whether by choice or circumstance. And while the experience may feel lonely or frustrating, we can take comfort in the fact that we are not alone in our solitude. Just as God was with Moses in Midian, with Paul in Arabia, with Joseph in his prison cell, and with Jesus in the wilderness, He is with us. Like a skilled gardener who tends to each plant with care and patience, God tends to our hearts in these times of solitude. He may use these seasons to teach us, to refine us, and to prepare us for the next chapter of our lives. Instead of seeing isolation as something to fear, we can learn to view it as a sacred space where God works most powerfully. Like a blacksmith shaping metal, God's hands are at work in the quiet, forming us into the people we are meant to be. Embracing isolation as part of your journey can be a transformative experience if you recognize it as a sign that God is at work behind the scenes, orchestrating something much greater than what meets the eye. Like a painter who steps back from a canvas to carefully assess his next brushstroke, isolation allows you the space to reflect on your life, examine your purpose, and prepare for the masterpiece God is creating in you. It's easy to feel as though you're being left in the shadows when faced with periods of loneliness or separation. But often these moments are a signal that you're being prepared for something extraordinary. Just as a caterpillar must retreat into its cocoon to emerge as a butterfly, isolation can serve as the cocoon where your spiritual wings are formed. These quiet, solitary moments aren't empty. They are full of divine potential. And while it may feel like you're in a season of waiting, trust that this waiting is part of a larger plan, one that will unfold when the time is right. During these periods of isolation, it's important to remember that God is not absent. He is working behind the scenes, crafting a future filled with hope. Much like an artist who sketches a design before adding color, God is working in the hidden places of your heart and life, shaping your character and aligning your steps with His perfect will. While you may not see the full picture yet, trust that every moment spent in isolation is part of a divine preparation for the breakthrough that awaits. God's promises, much like seeds planted in fertile soil, take time to grow, and He uses isolation to cultivate your faith, patience, and dependence on Him. Just as a gardener waits for the right season to harvest the fruit, God knows the perfect timing for your breakthrough, and your isolation is simply the season of growth that precedes it. While it may feel like you're stuck in the waiting room of life, in reality, you're being equipped and refined, your character being sharpened, and your heart being stretched for what's to come. In times of isolation, practical reflection becomes essential. Instead of succumbing to frustration or fear, use this time to cultivate deeper intimacy with God. Prayer, much like water to a thirsty plant, nourishes your spirit and helps you stay rooted in faith. Take time to pour out your heart to God, sharing your hopes, fears, and dreams, and listen for His still, small voice guiding you. Just as a musician practices their instrument to improve their skill, use this time to practice prayer and meditation, building your spiritual muscles and learning to hear God's voice more clearly. Journaling is another powerful tool during periods of isolation, providing a safe space for you to process your thoughts, reflect on your journey, and record the ways in which God is moving in your life. Like a traveler marking the milestones of their journey on a map, journaling helps you track your progress, remind yourself of God's faithfulness, and gain perspective on the road ahead. You may find that as you write, God reveals deeper insights, helps you confront old wounds, and prepares you for the next chapter in your life. Self-discovery also flourishes in the soil of isolation. Much like a sculptor who chips away at a block of stone to reveal the figure hidden within, isolation offers an opportunity to dig deep into who you are and who you are becoming. This is the time to strip away distractions and noise and take a good, honest look at yourself. What dreams have been buried beneath the weight of the world? What fears have kept you from moving forward? What are the talents and passions God has placed within you, waiting to be uncovered? Isolation can be the perfect opportunity for you to answer these questions and align your life more closely with the purpose God has set for you. Just as a deep well must be dug to reveal its water, isolation allows you the space to dig into your soul and uncover the treasures God has hidden there. You may discover strengths you didn't know you had, or find that you're capable of far more than you ever imagined. It's a season that invites you to become more in tune with your true self, shedding the layers of self-doubt and confusion that often come with the busyness of life. Amid all this reflection, it's crucial to focus on God's promises. In times of isolation, it's easy for discouragement to creep in, causing you to question your worth or your future. But during these times, God's promises serve as a lighthouse, guiding you through the fog of uncertainty. Just as a lighthouse stands tall amidst crashing waves, God's promises remain steadfast, offering you hope and direction in the midst of any storm. His word is a constant reminder that He is for you, that He has a plan for your life, and that His timing is always perfect. When you focus on His promises, you begin to see beyond the temporary discomfort of isolation and look forward to the breakthrough that is sure to come. Just as a farmer patiently waits for the harvest after months of planting, you can rest assured that your time of solitude will eventually bear fruit. In embracing isolation as part of your journey, remember that this season isn't just about waiting. It's about preparation, transformation, and alignment with God's greater purpose. Like the deep roots of a tree that anchor it during a storm, your time of solitude strengthens you, rooting you in God's love and wisdom. When you embrace isolation with a heart open to God's work in your life, you begin to see it not as a burden, but as a blessing, a time when God shapes you, refines you, and prepares you for the future He has in store. Just as the most precious gems are formed under pressure, your journey through isolation will eventually lead you to the breakthrough you've been waiting for, and the person you were always meant to become. As you embrace your season of isolation, remember that this is not a time of delay, but one of preparation for the amazing things God has in store for you. Trust that He is working behind the scenes, and this season will lead to your elevation and fulfillment. Now, I encourage you to take action. If you're ready to step into this season with faith and embrace the transformation that's coming your way, leave a comment saying, "I am ready." Let us know you're choosing to trust God's timing and purpose for your life. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you can stay connected and continue to receive the encouragement and guidance you need. Your journey is important, and your support means the world. Consider using the thanks button to support this channel, or click the join button to become a part of our growing community. Together, we'll embrace the quiet, trust in God's work, and step boldly into the future He has prepared for us.